What's going on, guys? My name is Caleb and welcome to Built. This is my MGB. In the past 2 weeks, we've really been dialing in the rear end design, trying to kind of finalize this thing. I redesigned basically the whole car and I didn't really touch the rear end until now, and I think it looks really cool. We put a Ferrari 430 diffuser on the back. We've got our 911 GT2 wing deck lid thing on the rear, and then a big old carbon GT wing on top of that. We also have our alternate wing, which is the stair step wing that so many of you love to hate and hate to love. And we'll be doing that one as well. Some people were concerned I was getting rid of it. I'm not. We're just going to have 2 wings because why not? But I was looking at this design and I hadn't really planned on doing this, but I needed to replace the stock headlights. 1 second, I'll show you what they look like. So this is the stock headlight. It's a simple design and I think it looks okay. It goes in just about like that. And I do think it looks okay, but I don't know. We've changed everything else. I just want to try changing these as well. So we'll be keeping these. I gotta replace them actually, but we'll have some maybe. I don't know. We'll see how this next phase turns out. But to show you what we're gonna do in the next phase, I've got to get on the computer. We're gonna be prototyping parts with a 3D printer and then producing them in the real world. Should be a really cool video, and as always, I'll leave descriptions, or rather links in the description below of how I'm doing this. It's not free, but it's pretty cheap considering what is being done. I'll show you the 3D printer I've been using for the past like 4 years. That's a pretty budget-friendly 3D printer. I'll show you the free for 30 days software that I'm using, as well as everything else that I'm going to use to actually produce the part and make it a real thing. Before we get into any of that, let's jump into the computer. Alright, so we're in Autodesk Inventor. I usually use Fusion 360. They made some changes. I had to use the free version of Autodesk Inventor. I've got it for 30 days. This shape that I'm starting with is a shape that I actually got from pictures. So I took some pictures of the headlight with a ruler in front of it, drew them out in Adobe Illustrator, which is just a drawing program. You could do it in Photoshop, anything to get the shape, and then imported that into Inventor. That gave me my base shape to build on, and then I just had to add the circles that I needed to add for my actual taillights. Learning these programs is a little bit steep in terms of learning curve, but you can totally do it. There's tons of tutorials. I started out 3D printing with having never 3D modeled in my life, and now I can make pretty much any simple object that I want. I'm working on making cars. And 8 hours later, we have a prototype. Now this one I dropped and it broke, which shows a flaw in the design, but that's okay. It's gonna go just like this on that little portion right there. And I think it looks really cool, but there is an issue, and it's because I used a 4-inch light. That doesn't fit. So I messed up my scaling, I think, so I've got to go back in the computer, and while I'm in there, I'm going to actually take this circle and move it back over. I thought the offset would look kind of cool, having the lights kind of slanted, but I noticed that these tail lights from the factory are symmetrical, so the left and right look exactly the same. So if we make one that is symmetrical here, then we can use the same 3D print to produce both parts, which is pretty awesome. We're gonna do that. Another benefit we get is by moving it inward, we get a lot more strength. So this circle down here is way stronger than this floppy guy. So we're gonna go back into the computer, do a quick redesign, and reprint it at a bigger scale so it'll fit this a little bit better. Okay, and 14 hours later, I'm still wearing the same clothes because our entire septic system is being replaced in our house, which means we don't shower very often anymore. And we've got a part. This is printed a little bit higher resolution because I'm pretty sure this is going to be the final design. We got a little bit of a raised edge over here. That's something that happens with 3D printing when you're not set up properly. I leveled the bed, but I didn't level it enough, and so this bottom half kind of lifted, which is not great, but we can fix it in post, as they say. But this is going to be our design. I think it looks really cool. We move this loop inward. Everything feels a lot stronger. And our light doesn't really fit. Well, I say that. I kind of changed my idea. It does center over this really nice, and I think it does look good. So we'll just have to mount it on top of the loop right there, and I think it's going to make a lot of sense. This goes in right here and fits way, way better. You can see it covers up these little holes that were not covered up previous. So that is how I wanted it to be, and this will just plug in right there. These little stringies are just, it's just the printer. When it was going back and forth, it leaves this string. That'll just get cut out, no big deal. So there we go. That's our design. I know what you're wondering, but wait, there's only one taillight there. And you're right, there is only one taillight there. It's because something else is going right there, and we'll get to that in a minute. But first, we have to finish this part out. For 3D printed parts, print in layers, so you get these layer lines that you have to sand out. So we're gonna sand those down, get them smooth, cover this in some filler primer, get this thing super, super smooth, and then we'll move on to the next step that I'm actually really excited about because I hadn't done it in a while. Let's go. That's frustrating. Man, that was it too, that was the end. Well, that's a bummer. I'm not lying when I said this thing took 14 hours to print. And I knew it was weak, and that's okay. We didn't really need it to be strong. This was the only process that we would be exerting any force on it. But, Bummer. All right, and this is why I love 3D printing. This is reprint number 3. And I decided to just go ahead and reprint the whole thing for a few reasons. I figured out my scaling issue. So you can see this is the first one and this is the last one. And it was all based on me scaling it improperly, obviously. And the last one fits really, really well. I mean, it just mates up to the MG really perfectly, and it forms to this shape exactly, which is just awesome. Very excited about that. Also, our opening's a little bit bigger. So because the opening's bigger, we're able to actually fit our headlight or tail light into the hole. Now, I can't put it in this way because the surround is actually bigger than 4 inches, but that's fine. I wasn't planning on it anyway. It's gonna mount in from the back. Now, another thing we did that was an improvement over the first design is you'll notice we left the centers filled in. That gives us a lot more rigidity, and we don't have to worry about this breaking anymore. So that's pretty great. Now, you'll notice I already hit it with some primer. Used to be white, now it's gray. That was to see all of my little hairs. Like, you got these, what do you call them? I don't remember what they call them, but it's from the extruder moving back and forth. It leaves this like fiber. We're gonna sand all that out and make sure it's clean before we go to the next step. And with that, it is all smooth and ready to go. Now, you'll notice there's still layer lines, all that stuff. We'll deal with that in a minute. Another thing we did that was a huge improvement is we printed this sitting on its back, which is what I wanted to do with this, but I didn't have enough room. Splitting this mold down the middle allowed me to do that. And then I just reattached it to itself with some CA glue. And CA glue on a plastic 3D print is solid. I mean, it is not gonna come apart. And so we're gonna actually take this to the next step and produce a automotive grade, automotive quality part out of this 3D print. Let me show you. This is like foam core board, and this is gonna be a backing for our part. We'll go ahead and prime it. And now it is primed. That's just so it'll match. We're gonna take a little bit more CA glue, super glue, and stick this on to here. And now we have this kind of cool looking piece of art. Now, if you are a follower of the channel, you kind of know where we're going with this. If not, stay tuned. The next step of this process is epoxy, which is one of my favorite materials on the planet. Let's go do it. So now we have a really hard and solid surface, and it's pretty smooth, but not quite as good as I want it to be. I really want this to be a nice mold. I'm trying to do this thing right. So we're gonna do it again. Before we put another coat on here, there's some roughness, there's some kind of, I don't know, layer lines, just things that I really wanna clean up. So I'm gonna take this as 80 grit sandpaper, and we're gonna just go over the whole kind of mold, or plug, I guess is what this is. We'll sand it all down, get it smooth again, and we'll do another layer of epoxy over that, and then it should be ready to go. It should be super smooth, and it should feel like a finished part. We'll do one more coat of epoxy. How about that transition? So you can see here kind of our evolution. Originally I was thinking about just using the fiberglass, or not the fiberglass, sorry, this is a 3D printed part. You see we had some strength issues there. We made it a little bigger, had some strength issues there, but overall this one actually came out really nice. And then we finally got this. This is our final piece. Look how nice and shiny. Now, we've put this backer board on there, we've epoxied this thing in. This is one piece. Like, this is never gonna come apart ever again. And if you haven't watched the channel very much, then you might be wondering what is going on here. Well, we are making a fiberglass mold. And in the past, I have skipped steps, I've tried to shorten the process, and I've decided that the process is a process for a reason, and we're not shortening it at all. So, we've gotta prep this to pull a mold. This is called a plug or a buck. And we have to get it prepped for a mold. Now there are some runs, there's one here, there's a few kind of around that's making this not perfectly smooth, and we want it to be perfectly smooth. So I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna sand around this, get it nice and smooth. We may hit it with some primer just to fill in any small tiny cracks that we do have. All right, there we go. I hit it with some primer, built up a thick layer, sanded that back just a little bit with some 400 wet sand, and we are ready for the next step. Which is pretty exciting. This is the part that I've always kind of skipped steps on, and this time we didn't skip any, and this thing looks really, really great. The reason it's tempting to skip is because this is basically trash after we use it. So it is tempting to try to just blow past this part and finish the body work later. But any body work you do before making the part is body work you don't have to do after. And if I want to pull extras of these, which I probably will, I don't want to have to body work every single one. So this thing really should be nice out of the mold, assuming we do the next several steps right. So what we got to do next is we got to coat it in wax, which is just a mold release wax, a real thin wax. We'll put it on, buff it off like 4 or 5 times, and then we'll do a PVA layer, which is a thin plastic film. It's an air dry type thing, and we'll let that dry all the way off, and then we can start making our part. The wax and the PVA is going to ensure that our mold actually releases from this and allows us to make the part. If you don't use those things, you can get away with no PVA, but for me, I don't want to risk not making the part the first time. So I'm gonna do 5 layers of wax and then a layer of PVA, and then we'll lay our gel coat in, and then we'll lay our fiberglass on, and then we'll pull it all off, and we'll have a negative of this that we can then produce parts from. Pretty exciting. With our clear gel coat completely dry, it was time to start laying out some fiberglass. I wanted to do like 5 or 6 layers on this part. Because it is a mold, I wanted it to be really, really stiff. That'll make pulling parts out of it much, much easier. This design is a little bit difficult to do, and we'll talk about it later in the video, but basically it's really, really small and intricate, and fiberglass doesn't really like small and intricate, especially when you're a beginner. So I had some trouble getting the fiberglass to lay down into all the little nooks and crannies of this mold, but in the end we were able to get something that resembled our part. Once this cures, we'll be able to pull the buck out of it that we made earlier, and we'll be able to pull all of our parts out of this one mold. All right. Ha-ha! There we go. Now it's not the prettiest looking thing right now. We've got to wash it up. And had I used a gel coat that wasn't clear, you would be able to kind of see it a little bit better. It looks like our primer kind of got stuck on the resin too. So we'll clean all this up, and then, man, it looks like everything just took so well. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, so we're gonna clean this mold up, and then we'll be ready to make a part off of it. That is so exciting. Fiberglass is a lot of rinse and repeat. Now we're adding gel coat to the mold. It's got some black tint in it so we can see it. And once it dries, we'll add fiberglass. Now, this is where the problem lies with this design. I made these walls, the walls that go up around the taillight, way too thin for fiberglass. They really need to be maybe 1/8 of an inch thicker so that the fiberglass will go down inside of them and I can get all of the air out. Air is the enemy here. And it had a hard time getting the air to actually get out of the mold because of how tight those little like crevices were around the taillight. We did end up getting some fiberglass down in there. Let's see how it turns out. Yeah. Bummer. Let's worry about that. So you see it didn't grab that. Which I was pretty, oh, it stayed in there, that's why. Got a little bit in there too, let's see what we got here. All right, so I just cut these out of the little like flanges, so you can see they're looking a little bit more like the finished part now. Anyway, I was gonna kind of try to perfect the mold and get better pulls, but the whole point of this video is to show you guys that you can do this at home. Even if it's not perfect, even if you run into some these are major issues. You can do it at home. I just don't want this to be intimidating because I didn't do it for so long because I was intimidated by it because my stuff wasn't turning out perfect. So this is obviously not perfect. I've got filler, we've got some rough edges, we've got things that need to be fixed, but I think we can save these yet. This one is kind of like flexible. That's concerning. We'll see. Ta-da! There is our prototype. Now, I didn't finish it all the way out. I did paint it and stuff, but I'm gonna redo it. Not in this video, because I'm out of time. But I'm gonna make this ring a little bit thicker so it molds easier, so I can produce more of these and it be an easy thing to make. I'm gonna change some of the design just to really all for mold purposes. This was really a huge learning experience for me in how complex a mold can be. In terms of details and stuff, but we got something. And what's interesting is I ended up cutting the top half off, and I think it's going to work really well. Let me show you why. So the whole reason we've been building this is to house this tail light, and it was supposed to go right there. Well, with the pointy thing didn't fit, which is okay. It still goes right there, which I'm pretty excited about. I think it looks really cool. Just like that. And I painted this thing gloss black so it would match the taillight housing. We may like silicone this in or something so it's all one piece. I don't know yet. But for now, I'm just gonna let them sit together because I am, like I said, gonna make another version of this that's a little bit cleaner, a little bit better modeled for what I'm trying to do. But what goes in the bottom one? I'm so glad you asked. Let's put it on, I'll show you. Alright, here we go. You ready? That'll go like that. I do have a belt sander I'm going to bring to clean that up, so no worries about the roughness. That, like that. And then right here. How cool is that, dude? How cool is that? Oh, that's too cool. Look at that. Well, you just look at it.
You know, when I see a car like this, first thing I do is I say, would you look at this? You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Man, that is cool. Hello. So excited about that. If it shoots flames, it'll be even cooler. So there you go. That's the big secret. I'm gonna run my exhaust right there. I don't have a lot of options. I can't run it out the center because the fuel tank's in the way. I can't run it out down here. Well, I could, but the axle is kind of in the way. So we're just gonna come straight over the top of the axle and out directly under the taillights. All right, you guys ready to see what these things look like on? They look sick. It's not just a regular trailer light. One sec. These are trailer lights, by the way. Gonna mock this up. 1 second, here we go. Mock up in 3, 2, 1. There you go, how cool. I don't know if I'm gonna sit this out like that. Oh, my tape is unsticking itself. Or if we'll flush it up, that's pretty cool too. Because I think people will be like, oh, where does that go? For now though, it balances like this, so that's how we're gonna roll with it. Just like that. That is awesome. Oh, that is just too cool. I did not think about how the light was gonna hit this. That is gonna look insane at night. Oh my goodness. Secret word of the day. We haven't done this in a while and I've been trying to remember. It'll be a hint. We will call it Isle of Man, like the race. That's the hint. It may be a hint, it may not be a hint. I'm not sure yet. Hope you guys have a great week, great weekend, great day. I'll see you in the next one. In the next one we're gonna be doing a lot of fiberglassing. Old school built stuff. We're gonna show you a lot of tricks, a lot of tips. We're gonna be doing some stuff you guys have been asking me to do for a really long time, so it should be fun. I think you'll enjoy it. I'm gonna go to bed.